Everyone in Surulere slept peacefully until the ghost of the man they buried started knocking on doors one by one. Welcome to Royal Beat Tales. If you are just seeing us for the first time, please subscribe, like, and comment for more unique stories. In Surulere, a lively district of Lagos, lived a famous musician named Ziko. He was a tall and cheerful man who made everyone around him happy. Each morning, Ziko would stroll down the busy street, greeting neighbors with a bright smile. Children ran up to him because he often bought them sweets and sang funny songs to make them laugh. There was never a dull moment when Ziko was around. Ziko's wife, Amma, was a beautiful and kind woman. She was tall, fair, and always stood by his side proudly. Amma loved Ziko's music and his jokes. They lived in a cozy apartment on a friendly street in Surulere. Neighbors would often stop by to listen to Ziko play guitar and sing on his front porch in the evenings. His voice was smooth and lively, attracting a small crowd that clapped and danced along. Fans from around the city came to watch Ziko perform at local shows. Even the older folks in the area tapped their feet when they heard his tunes. People said he had a heart of gold because he helped others and spread joy with his music. But not everyone was happy about Ziko's success and bright spirit. A few neighbors watched him with jealous eyes. They whispered among themselves, upset that he was so loved and successful. While most of Surulere celebrated Ziko, those jealous few began to nurse a dark hatred. In the shadows, they planned something terrible, even as Ziko laughed and entertained without a care. One sad evening, Ziko did not come home. Amma waited at the dinner table, but the food grew cold. The sun set and darkness fell over Surulere. Amma's worry turned into fear. She called his phone many times, but there was no answer. She stayed up all night by the window, tears in her eyes, hoping to see her husband walking down the street. But Ziko never appeared. By morning, Amma was frantic. She alerted the neighbors and the police that Ziko was missing. Friends and fans joined the search. They looked around the neighborhood and even checked nearby hospitals. Everyone expected a phone call if it was a kidnapping, but no call came. It was as if Ziko had vanished into thin air. What no one knew was that Ziko had been taken by those who hated him. On that fateful night, the jealous neighbors lured Ziko out of his home with a lie. They pretended they needed help with something urgent down the road. Trusting and kind, Ziko followed them. But they grabbed him and tied his hands. They pushed him into a car and drove far away from the bright lights of Surulere into a dark, quiet forest. In the middle of the night, under a large tree in the forest, they forced Ziko to stand before a deep hole they had dug. Ziko trembled and begged for his life. He promised them money and pleaded to be let go. But envy filled their hearts, and they did not listen. In the silent darkness, they did the unthinkable. They pushed Ziko into the hole and began to cover him with cold, damp soil. He screamed and cried for mercy as dirt filled his mouth and eyes. Soon his cries grew silent under the earth. The wicked neighbors hurriedly patted down the ground, leaving Ziko buried in a shallow grave beneath the forest floor. Their terrible deed was done, and they sneaked back to the city as if nothing happened. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. There was still no sign of Ziko. Amma woke up every day with tears staining her pillow. She could not eat or sleep properly, worrying about her dear husband. Neighbors in Surulere gathered each evening to comfort her and pray for Ziko's return. Posters with Ziko's smiling face were hung on street poles. His fans even held candlelight vigils at the local field, hoping for a miracle. But as more time passed, hope began to fade. Amma visited the police station regularly, but there were no leads on Ziko's disappearance. His case became a mystery that no one could solve. Some people whispered that maybe he had run away, but Amma refused to believe those rumors. She knew Ziko loved her too much to ever leave without a word. Each night she sat on the porch, clutching Ziko's favorite guitar, strumming a few sad notes he had taught her. The once lively home was now quiet and filled with sorrow. The neighbors who harmed Ziko pretended to know nothing and even joined the search, acting worried. But when no one was looking, they exchanged sly smiles, thinking they had gotten away with their crime. The community in Surulere slowly returned to normal life, but a shadow hung over the neighborhood. Without Ziko's laughter and music, the street felt empty. Amma felt completely alone, yet she still whispered a prayer every night, hoping somehow Ziko would find his way back home. After about a year passed, most people had given up hope. Many assumed Ziko was dead, even though his body was never found. Amma remained in sorrow, wearing black clothes in mourning. She kept a small candle lit by the window each night, believing that if Ziko was out there, the light might guide him back to her. Little did she know, fate was about to change in a most unexpected way. Late one afternoon, deep in the same forest where Ziko was buried, an old native doctor arrived at a clearing. He was a traditional medicine man on a journey. The sun was setting and the air was thick with the smell of wet leaves. The native doctor decided to stop and perform a ritual to honor his ancestors. Unaware of the grave beneath his feet, he began his ceremony right on the very spot where Ziko lay buried. He poured a little bottle of whiskey onto the ground as an offering to the spirits of the land. The golden liquid sank into the soil above Ziko's resting place. The native doctor also placed some kola nuts on the ground and spoke ancient words into the evening air. His voice was low and musical as he chanted prayers, asking the ancestors for guidance and blessings. The forest was quiet except for the soft rustling of leaves. The ground where Ziko was buried drank in those powerful words and offerings, but the native doctor did not know. He finished his ritual, packed up his things, and left the clearing as the sky grew dark. That night, something strange happened beneath the earth. The spot where the whiskey and sacred prayers touched the soil began to stir. At midnight, the ground cracked open with a soft rumble. A pale hand pushed out from the earth, followed by another. Slowly, Ziko rose from the shallow grave, climbing out of the ground that had trapped him for a year. His clothes were dirty and torn, but his body was as whole as the day he disappeared. Ziko's eyes opened and he took a deep breath of the cool night air. He was alive, or something beyond alive. Perhaps the ancestors had heard the prayers and awakened him. Ziko stood under the moonlight in the forest, his face calm but his eyes faintly glowing with an unnatural light. Without a word, he began walking out of the forest, heading back towards the city. He remembered the way home, and nothing would stop him from returning to Surulere that very night. It was past midnight when Amma heard a gentle knock on the front door. The electricity was out, and the house was lit by a dim, rechargeable lantern. Amma's heart skipped a beat. Nobody visited at such an odd hour. Cautiously, she took the lantern and went to the door. "Who is it?" she whispered, her voice shaky. A familiar voice softly replied, "It's me, Ziko." Amma couldn't believe her ears. With trembling hands, she unlocked and opened the door. There stood Ziko, a bit dirty and tired-looking, but very much alive. He managed a small smile. For a moment, Amma stood frozen in shock. Then she let out a cry of joy and threw her arms around him. She hugged him tightly, tears of happiness streaming down her face. "Ziko, you're back! You're alive!" she cried over and over. Amma was overwhelmed and sobbed loudly, which woke a few neighbors. They peeked through their windows, astonished to see the missing man at his doorstep. Some rubbed their eyes, thinking they were dreaming, but it was real. Ziko had returned. Amma pulled Ziko inside, never letting go of his hand, as if he might disappear again. She fetched a towel to wipe the dirt off his face and hair. She kept touching his arms and shoulders, making sure he was solid and not a vision. Ziko spoke softly. "I'm home now, Amma." He did not explain where he had been or what happened, and Amma did not press him that night. She was simply happy to have her husband back. Despite the late hour, she brought out a plate of food and urged him to eat. Ziko ate slowly, his eyes downcast and thoughtful. Amma chatted about how much she missed him, her voice full of relief and love. That night, for the first time in a year, Amma slept with a smile on her face. Ziko lay beside her in their bed, holding her close. They curled up together under the blanket as a cool breeze blew gently through the window. Amma fell asleep listening to Ziko's steady breathing, feeling safe and happy again. The terrible year of loneliness was over. Her beloved husband was home, and she believed their life would soon return to normal. Morning light filtered through the curtains in Ziko and Amma's bedroom, and Amma woke up feeling joyful, remembering that Ziko was back. She turned to greet him with a cheerful good morning, expecting his usual playful grin. But Ziko only nodded with a small smile. He seemed calm but strangely quiet, not as lively as before. Amma thought maybe he was tired or still upset from whatever happened, so she did not worry. News of Ziko's return spread quickly through the neighborhood. By afternoon, close friends and a few family members came to visit. They were eager to see Ziko alive and safe. People crowded into the small living room of the apartment, talking excitedly. One friend laughed with relief and said, "We thought we lost you, Ziko." Ziko forced a tiny smile but stayed mostly silent. He sat among them, listening quietly as others talked. Normally, Ziko would be the one telling funny stories or singing a lively song to celebrate, but now he just watched with a gentle, distant smile. Amma served jollof rice and drinks to welcome him home. As everyone ate and talked, Ziko excused himself to step outside for some fresh air. On the street, he looked around slowly. Things were just as they were before. Children playing, traders calling out, cars honking. Yet Ziko stood there apart, as if he felt a world away. One of the neighbors who had harmed Ziko walked by. This man was one of the 4 who took Ziko's life. When he saw Ziko standing there alive and well, the man's face went as pale as a ghost. His eyes widened in terror. He dropped the bag he was carrying, spilling fruits onto the road. Ziko's eyes met the frightened man's. Ziko stared at him without blinking. The guilty neighbor began to shake and sweat. He remembered burying Ziko with his own hands. The man let out a panicked yelp and suddenly turned to run. In his haste, one of his slippers fell off on the pavement. He sprinted away down the street as if chased by an unseen monster, disappearing around the corner. Other people on the street were puzzled by the man's wild escape. Amma saw the strange encounter from the porch and rushed to Ziko's side. "What happened? Why did he run off like that?" she asked. Ziko gently put his arm around her shoulders and shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe he thought he saw a ghost," Ziko said quietly. Amma frowned, confused, but she let it go, not realizing how true Ziko's words might be. 3 nights later, a heavy thunderstorm swept over Lagos. Rain pounded Surulere, drumming on roofs and flooding the streets. Lightning flashed in the sky like jagged cracks of light, followed by booming thunder. Most residents stayed inside. Amma and Ziko lay in bed as the storm raged outside. Amma dozed off, feeling secure next to her husband, but Ziko was wide awake. Something stirred inside him as midnight approached. A flash of lightning lit up the bedroom, and Ziko's eyes snapped open. They glowed an unnatural red in the darkness. Thunder growled as he slipped out of the house into the stormy night. Rain soaked him, but he did not feel it. His mind was fixed on one thing: justice. Ziko moved like a ghost through the rain, heading to the first killer's house. The storm was so loud that nobody heard his footsteps or saw his shadow in the dark. Inside, the first killer paced in fear, unable to sleep and haunted by guilt. A lightning flash revealed Ziko standing in the corner of the room. The man's heart nearly stopped. He tried to scream, but no sound came as Ziko's red eyes locked onto him. In a heartbeat, the man vanished with a faint cry, leaving empty air behind. One by one, Ziko visited the other wicked neighbors that night. The second man saw Ziko's figure in a flash of light and disappeared with a terrified cry. The third man tried to hide under his bed, but Ziko found him. A single scream echoed, and he was gone too. The last man tried to flee in his car. As he sped away, lightning lit up his rearview mirror, and he saw Ziko in the back seat. The man cried in terror and lost control of the car. It crashed into a street lamp. When the car finally stopped, its door hung open and it was empty. By the time the night grew quiet, all four evil men were gone. Ziko slowly walks home under the dying rain. The red light faded from his eyes, returning them to their warm brown. He crept back into the bedroom. Amma was still fast asleep, curled up under the blankets. Ziko stood by the bed, rainwater dripping from his clothes. He gazed at his wife with love and sadness. He knew he did not truly belong in the living world anymore. His task was finished. "Goodbye, my love," he whispered softly. By morning, Amma woke with a jolt to find herself sitting in the driver's seat of her car, parked in the middle of a dense forest. Birds sings in the early light, and mist clung to the tall trees around her. Amma's heart pounded in her chest. How did she get here? The last thing she remembered was falling asleep at home beside Ziko. Now she was alone in her car on a narrow dirt path among the trees. Amma stepped out of the car cautiously. The ground was wet and soft from the night's rain. In front of her was a small clearing. She saw a wide, gaping hole in the ground, like a dug-up grave. The soil around it was freshly disturbed and muddy. With trembling steps, Amma approached the open grave. She peered in and saw the outline of a human shape pressed into the dirt, bone figure. Her breath caught in her throat. Near the edge of the pit, Amma noticed something familiar. She reached down and picked it up. It was Ziko's wristwatch, smeared with mud but still ticking. Tears filled Amma's eyes as she realized she was standing at Ziko's secret grave, the place where he had been buried after being murdered. Now that grave was open. Amma fell to her knees by the graveside, clutching the watch to her chest. She cried loudly. The truth was clear and heartbreaking. Ziko had died, and yet he had returned from the dead to protect her and punish those who hurt him. Amma's tears flowed as she whispered, "Ziko, you came back for me." In the silent morning air, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. She thought she heard a faint sound in the wind, a soft humming, like Ziko humming a comforting tune. She looked up, eyes searching the trees. "Thank you," she said softly, hoping Ziko's spirit could hear her. Amma stood up slowly, wiping her tears. In the mud, she noticed a trail of footprints leading away into the forest, but after a few meters they disappeared. It was as if Ziko's spirit had led her here and then vanished. Though her heart ached, she also felt a calm peace. The evil men who took Ziko's life were gone. Ziko would now be given a proper burial, and his soul could finally rest. Amma made her way back to the car. She took one last look at the grave and the quiet trees. Then she whispered, "I will be back," and drove back towards Surulere. She would never forget the incredible events she had witnessed. This was the story of a husband's undying love and justice, of the man who decided not to rest in peace until the wrong was made right. Ziko was later laid to rest as tradition demands. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment for more unique stories.